So we will finish this topic on force by considering two more examples, and these examples I am taking from the book of Kleppner and Korenkov, and the first one is example 2.9, and the problem is said something like this. So what we have is we have two masses m1 and m2 connected through a string of, let's say, a constant length L. Mass m1 is resting on a table top, and the string runs through a central hole on the table such that mass m2 hangs freely under gravity. This mass m1 is now making a circular motion on the surface of this table at t equal to 0 with constant angular velocity omega naught at certain distance r naught, and the system is being preserved in this condition at t equal to 0. So somehow we are maintaining that the mass m2 is hanging from the center at a location z, at the position z, and this mass is r naught distance away and going around in circles with constant angular velocity omega naught. And now if we release the system from this at this instance, the idea is to find out the equation of motion and to see the evolution of the system. Right? Okay, so what we can do is we can start by writing the equation of motion. Right? And now we have to write down the equation of motion for mass m1 and mass m2. Okay. Now in this problem, so what we can do is we can identify that if I draw my usual Cartesian coordinate axis x, y, and z, right? Then in this we can see that mass m1, since it's constrained to move on the surface of this tabletop, then mass m1 is basically always moving in xy plane. So the z coordinate is immaterial for it, and similarly m2 is hanging freely under gravity. So it basically can only do up and down motion. So only z coordinate is required here. And with this knowledge, now what I can do is I can simplify the problem slightly, and I can write down the equation of motion for m1 in r theta coordinate system, your plane polar coordinate system, right? And so we already know how to write down that. So in r theta coordinate system, we know that acceleration is given as this. So it's a general acceleration, and then we'll see for the initial condition of the problem which components remain there. Theta dot, I guess, is theta dot square, and r cap plus r theta double dot plus r dot theta dot in theta direction. Right? So this is the experiment for this, and now we'll see the specifics of the problem. So since these two masses are connected to the string L, when the system is like this, there will be some tension in this string, right? So that means mass m1 will be pulled inwards towards the hole due to the tension T, which is applied on mass m1 because m2 is under gravity, and m2 will also be pulled up by the same tension T due to mass m1 because mass m1 is rotating and it's trying to maintain its position on the surface. Right. So there will be tension T, and now with this tension T, we can write down our equation of motion. So in rate, now look at the problem again. Sorry. This tension T is in radial direction, where this is my r cap, right? So we can equate now different components. So in radial direction, what we have is r double dot minus r theta dot square, and we'll just add m1 here so that it becomes a radial force, and that is equal to tension in the opposite direction r cap, right? So this is 1 in the tangential direction. So now what we are saying is at the instant t equal to 0, this is going on with a constant angular velocity omega naught. So there is no tangential component in the sense that theta, since theta dot is constant, theta double dot here will be 0. And also we are saying that the location or the distance of this point of this mass from the origin is fixed at r0. So there is no r dot also in that sense at that instant. Of course, once you after we let the system evolve freely, after that these things will come in, but at the instant that we release the system, these are the conditions. So there is no tangential component and or the angular component, and what that means is in that previous equation, r theta dot plus 2r dot theta dot is basically equal to 0. I mean, of course, I can just continue to write down in terms of force. So this is equal to 0. This is my one equation. Basically, this is for mass m1, and now we can write down the same thing for mass m2, right, which is hanging freely under gravity. And what that means is it's only moving in the z direction, and its motion in z direction will be governed by this equation m2 z double dot. And now again we have to fix up some sign convention. So the sign convention we are going to fix up is, if the length z increases, that's the direction of positive motion. So m2 z double dot positive acceleration is in this case then in the direction of gravity, and the tension is basically opposing it. So this is, and that's the only equation of motion for mass m2. So this is the equation of motion, and now we have to solve this. However, we don't know what is the tension. So of course, r double dot here is our parameter which we want to evaluate. Z double dot is also a parameter which we want to evaluate. However, we cannot do this unless we know what is the tension, right? And to find out what is the tension in the spring, or to eliminate this one, what we can do is we can use constraints which are present in this system, and the constraint that is present in the system is, doesn't matter how the system evolves, this distance, radial distance of mass m1 from the center and the distance z of the mass m2 from the center, these two should sum up to the length of the spring, right? So effectively one can say that r plus z has to be equal to L, which is a constant. So this is the constraint, and with this now we can eliminate one of the parameters. So if we simply take a second derivative of this, then this will give us 0, and this implies that r double dot is simply minus z double dot. So this is my constant equation. Now I can use 3 to represent equation number 2 in terms of r double dot, and then we have two equations in r double dot and t, and then we can solve it, right? Okay, so let's try to do that. So I'll just mark this as 1, this as 2, this is 3. Okay, and now, so we'll put 3 into 2, so we'll get m2 r double dot minus equal to m2 g minus t, and this implies that t is equal to m2 r double dot plus g, right? And now with this t value we can put it back here to solve for the r double dot, and what we can get is m1 r double dot minus r theta dot square is equal to minus t, and that is minus m2 r double dot plus g. And now we can solve this. So you can take the terms of r double dot common on one side, this is r double dot, and similarly this goes on that side. So this becomes plus m1 r theta dot square minus m2g, and this way r double dot is simply m1 r theta dot square minus m2g over m1 plus m2. Right? So we can get value of, an equation for r double dot, and since we know that r double dot is simply equal to minus z double dot, so this will imply that z double dot is nothing but negative of this. So m2g minus m1 r theta dot square over m1 plus m2. Right. Now of course in doing this, what we have done is we have neglected or we have assumed that this component of acceleration is 0, right, in the system. So it's somehow, I mean, there is no effect of this. It's not going to change the state of the system. But that is only true for the initial condition. Mind you, as soon as the system starts evolving, as soon as this distance starts to change, right, there could be its effect on omega naught, and of course it has effect on r naught. So then these terms will start creeping up. However, what we can say is so z dot initially at t equal to 0, when the system is actually released from the initial conditions, we can write this down as m2g minus m1, and now the r is r naught given initial distance. Theta dot is simply omega naught square over m1 plus m2. So then this becomes the instantaneous acceleration of mass m2 at t equal to 0, and similarly you can find out the instant acceleration of mass m1 at t equal to 0. So this is the relation, and from here what we can see is, if to begin, so at the initial condition is set such that m1 r0 omega naught square is equal to m2g, then z double dot is 0 and correspondingly r double dot is also 0. So that is the state or that is the condition for system to be in equilibrium. Mass m1 will keep circling at a constant radius r0 with constant angular velocity omega naught on the top of the table, and that provides enough tension to hold on to this weight m2g at a distance z. As soon as you disturb the system from there, either by changing the position r naught or by changing angular velocity, this z double dot becomes finite, and then either the mass will fall down, go up, and similarly this mass will either move towards the center of the hole, away from that, and then of course you can also change its angular velocity. Right? So that is one example of these systems. And here we can also see that what we have nicely used is different coordinate systems. So r theta to define one part of the problem, Cartesian to define another part of the problem. Yet we don't have an issue with that, because we know that these coordinate systems are equivalent and they are merely the used to simplify the problem or to solve the problem in a simple way. Okay. So with that, let me go on to the next example, which is example 2.10 in the book. And again, this is a fairly straightforward example. This is termed as a conical pendulum. So what you have basically is a simple pendulum. However, the pendulum is not swung back and forth as the way we do normally with simple pendulum. But and of course we all have done this. You take a simple pendulum, basically a spring with some mass attached to it, and now at the pivot point, instead of swinging it back and forth, what we are doing is we are rotating the pivot point. So we are basically, let's say this is a motor, right? I can call it a motor, and instead of swinging the thread back and forth, it's basically rotating it. So my mass, which is here, is rather than going backwards and forwards, it's actually making a circular motion, right? And this circular motion is actually confined to a plane, right? So let's call this as M, and we'll take the length of the spring L, right? Of course, this is also L. So length of the pendulum is L, mass M, right? And let's take this at the center of this thing, and it's making a circle in a plane, which is, so again we can take our x, y, and z. So the plane of the pendulum rotating mass is xy plane, and of course it's hanging along the z axis. So this is what it's doing, and it's going around with certain angular velocity omega. So basically, this thing is rotating with certain angular velocity. Omega alpha is the angle the thread makes with the vertical, right? And there is a problem. So now we have to find out what is the period of oscillation, or what is the equation of motion for this system. How do we do that? Again, what we do is we look at the force acting on this, right? So what are the forces acting on this? There is mg acting downwards. Of course, the spring is in tension, right? So so this will be T, tension T. And now what we can do is we can get the component of this tension T in two orthogonal directions, right? So along Z, and let's say along in this case along Y, and then along Z, this is T cos alpha. Along Z, because alpha is this angle, this will be T sin alpha. So these are the components of tension, right? And now, so these are all the forces that we have. We can write down the equation of motion just like we did in the previous problem. Again, what we'll do is, for the vertical direction, we will stick to Cartesian coordinate z-axis, and for the horizontal direction, the xy plane, since we know that there is a circular symmetry, we can again go back to our r theta coordinate system, right? Okay, so we'll do that. And now, so let's first, so we can call it equation of motion. Let's write them down. So in Z, since we said that the mass is simply moving in the circle, right? It's not bobbing up and down. There is no perturbation like that. So what that means is there is no acceleration along the Z direction, and that basically means that T cos alpha minus mg equal to 0, or T cosine of alpha is equal to mg. So this is my equation number 1. There is one equation of motion. In r theta now, we can do the same thing. We can write the generalized acceleration and then equate the components along r cap and theta cap. Now in this case, r cap is this direction, theta cap is, well, in the plane tangential to this, right, at all different points. Right. So now we can write that down, and what we have is, we have a component T sin alpha coming because of tension. So this has to compensate for the angular acceleration along r cap. So that would be, since it's centered inwards, we'll write it minus T sin alpha is equal to m r double dot minus r theta dot square, right? This is the Rayleigh component. In this case also, there is no tangential component, there is nothing happening there. And now, since we know that this distance r is fixed for a given alpha, right? There won't be any radial acceleration that way, right? So this parameter is not changing. So the only radial acceleration is because of this. So m r theta dot square, right? And now, since the problem is, the constraints are rather fixed, we can put in those values. So T sin alpha is m. This r is basically equal to, is related to the length of the pendulum as L sin alpha. So m L sin alpha. Okay. So that we just simply remove this parameter r and write down everything in terms of the angle alpha, and theta dot, which is omega square. Okay. So then this is my equation of motion. Of course, I can divide both sides by sin alpha, right? And in this case cancel out. So this basically gives me T equal to ml omega square. And now we can put 2 in 1 and find out what is the value of this alpha. Alpha is the parameter, right? So we can write down the equation for alpha in terms of the known values, and that basically gives me G over L omega square. Okay. So this is the equation of motion that we are interested in, or this equation basically shows how the system is going to evolve. So cos alpha, cosine of alpha is G over L omega square. G is a constant, L is a constant. So alpha basically depends on the omega square. So the way you rotate it, faster you rotate, alpha will be different, slower you rotate, alpha will be different. And now what we can do is, we can analyze this by again taking some particular examples. So for example, since this is the value, this is the expression which is controlling it, we can look at the values of or some values of omega, which is the variable here, with respect to g over L, this constant number, and we'll see how cos alpha changes. So let's say we take different cases. If omega is, let's say, greater than square root of g over L, right? If omega is greater than square root of g over L, then cos alpha is, so this quantity is basically, this number is larger than this quantity is basically less than 1, right? So cos alpha is less than 1, and cos alpha being less than 1 means alpha is greater than 0. And we know how a cosine function behaves. So for cos alpha less than 1, cos alpha will have a value less than 1 when alpha is greater than 0, right? And that is this condition. Now, if omega tends to infinity, because omega doesn't have any bound, so let's say we keep on increasing. If omega tends to infinity, then we know that this expression will go to 0. So cos alpha tends to 0. That means alpha becomes pi by 2, right? So what this means now is, starting with 0 angular velocity, you can keep on increasing the angular velocity of your conical pendulum. So by the way, this is called a conical pendulum. So you can keep on increasing the angular velocity of your conical pendulum, and we all have seen it at some point of time whenever we do these kind of experiments or tricks. The mass will keep flying away from that center line, from the vertical line. However, maximum that you can increase is you can go to infinite angular velocity, right? Omega tending to infinity, but the maximum angle that you can go is up to pi by 2. So that means when it's rotating at its maximum, right, then at most you can make this angle. It can never cross that plane, right? So it's never going to go against gravity or upwards. It's always going to be in that plane of pi to 90 degree if the omega is very, very, very large. Right. Okay. So that's one extreme. Now let's come back. Let's say omega is equal to, by some means we have said this, that omega is equal to g by L. If omega is equal to g by L, square root of g by L, then this expression is basically equal to 1. So cos alpha equal to 1. And we know that cos alpha equal to 1 means alpha equal to 0. Alpha equal to 0 will basically mean that the pendulum is vertical. So when the angular velocity is equal to square root of g by L, the pendulum will simply hang vertically and rotate around the vertical. That's it. So the mass is simply going to make a spin motion in the vertical along that vertical line, and not going to go away from that vertical line. So this is fine. You can test this. And this thing is rather simple to make, and of course you don't have to have a motor. You can, for time, I mean for smaller angular velocities, we can just try to twirl it around and look at this. What about when this goes less than square root of g by L? That means if omega square is less than g over L, then cos alpha from that expression is greater than 1, right? However, cos alpha cannot be greater than 1. It's a trigonometric function. Its values are bound between plus minus 1. So it can never exceed 1. All it can do is, it can attain a value of 1, and that's it. That's the maximum it can go. It cannot go beyond 1. It cannot be larger than 1. Right? So that means for all values of omega less than g by L, cos alpha will simply be 1. And what is that state? That is simply the state. Right? So omega equal to g by L, the pendulum remains vertical, keeps spinning in line with the vertical axis. Omega can slow down omega, and it still keeps doing the same, because what we are saying is, let's say if omega is 0, then yes, then it's just a vertically hanging pendulum. Right? There is a spring, there is a mass, and that's it. Nothing happens. Right? So that is what this condition is, and till omega equal to g by L, that condition will remain. The pendulum is not going to go anywhere else. However, as soon as you go beyond this, then yes, then the cos alpha can have different values. Its bound becomes comes between plus minus 1, and then you will have different values of alpha, and then till omega goes to infinity, this will just simply alpha will simply go from 0 to pi by 2. Okay. What we can do is we can also see this graphically, and what we can do is let's plot cos alpha as a function of omega, right? Where let's say this point is omega equal to g by L. Right? So this is the point where omega equal to g by L, and now we'll simply see the same cases graphically on this plot. So what we have said is for omega larger than g by L up to omega equal to g by L, right? It's cos alpha is simply going to follow this equation, which says that it will go as 1 over omega naught square. So it will look something like this. And at this location, cos alpha value is 1 when omega is square root of g by L, and after that it simply goes as omega naught, omega 1 over omega square. So that will be a function of like this. A non-linear function will go like this. What happens below this? We know that omega equal to 0. Again, the cos alpha value is 1 because alpha equal to 0. And in between, for all the values, the only physically realizable value for cos alpha is 1. Because my equation says that it should be more than 1, but it's just not physically realizable because the cos alpha cannot cross the bound of plus minus 1. So physically, this will be the curve. Although my equation says that it should have gone like this, right? Equation says that omega less than g by L, this should keep on increasing, and basically at omega equal to 0, this should be infinite, right? However, again, that's not the case. We know that at omega equal to 0, the pendulum simply hangs. There is no alpha. Alpha is also equal to 0, right? So there is this mathematical curve which extends on the lower side. However, we know that physically it's not realizable, and we can. And now what we have to do is we have to either say that okay fine, we can solve the equation of motion, but then it gives solution which works sometimes, but may not work other times, right? Which is again not a very good statement to make, because that way we don't have 100% confidence in our analysis. Or we can look at our analysis and see if we have missed something, right? And what we have missed in this particular case is something at this step, where we have t sin alpha equal to ml sin alpha omega naught square, and we simply said that sin alpha gets cancelled from both the sides, right? Now look at this limit. We said that omega equal to this, cos alpha equal to 1, alpha equal to 0. If alpha is equal to 0, then sin alpha is also equal to 0, right? So both sides you have 0, you cannot divide it. You cannot divide by sin alpha on both sides. You cannot nullify sin alpha in this way. It's a division by 0 on both sides, right? So that is the problem, that in not considering that case, we missed that point out, and that's why the answer that we get is correct as long as we don't have zeros on both sides of the equation, right? Okay, so we found out where did we miss something. So the solution is correct, but it has certain bounds which you have already seen there. And now to find out the solution, that what happens in this particular case. So let us take a limiting case, cos alpha equal to 1, alpha equal to 0. If that is the case, then we know that, let me write down here. So if this is the case, then we know that the equation of motion will be simply equal to mg. The pendulum hangs straight vertically. There is no t sin alpha component, right? And there is no radial acceleration because alpha is 0, right? So this is the only equation of motion, and which says that the pendulum will stay there. And of course, this equation of motion is valid for all values of omega. Again, because there is no omega here. So this equation of motion is valid for all values of omega. So the way we can write it down is, we say that this is the solution. There is one solution, and another solution is basically simply this. We will write it down as solution 1 and this as solution 2. There are two solutions to this problem. One is omega less than square root of g by L, cos alpha 1, pendulum hangs vertically. Omega beyond that, the pendulum can make an angle alpha and then go in a certain plane. Another is, even for omega greater than square root of g by L, the pendulum still remains vertical. Right? And that's a perfectly reasonable physical solution because nothing stops it or nothing forces it to go outwards. Of course, our experience tells us that it will almost always will go outwards, right? But that is because of the perturbation in the system. That is because we never have an ideal system where there are no unknown parameters which affect the behavioral system. So, in general, what will happen is the system will hang vertically and then start following this equation of motion. However, if we can set the system in an ideal condition where the system does not get perturbed or there is no perturbation present in the system at this point, it may as well simply cross this point, remaining vertical, and the bob will keep on spinning with the angular velocity omega aligning with the vertical direction. Right? Okay, so you can read this problem, example 2.10 in the book of Kleppner and Kolenko, and if there are any doubts, we can again discuss this during the discussion session. And for time being, we'll stop here, and in the next video, we will start with a new topic.